Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. It's Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It is brought to you by East Coast Roofing, Siding, Windows, serving all of South Jersey. If you call, they'll show up online. EastCoastRoofing.com. Andrew DiCecco's here. You know, the Eagles' top two picks from last season, you had Devontae Smith and Landon Dickerson, both Alabama guys. This year they went Georgia, Jordan Davis, Nakobe Dean. That seems to be the pattern. But a lot of changes in the front office now for the Eagles. They've made a lot of hirings in that area over the last couple of days. They've signed a lot in the undrafted free agent market. We saw all those guys this weekend. 42 players in all were there over the weekend. Andrew DiCecco here going to take a little look over at what happened this past weekend, how these guys might factor in, and what's next for this group of guys who will all be battling for roster spots on a team. By the way, the NFL schedule will be released tonight. There's a couple of Eagle games that have been leaking here and there. We know in week 1 they're going to play Detroit. In week 2 they're going to play Minnesota. I don't know what week it will be, but Christmas Eve they will play at Dallas. And we do have a couple of other games that we know out there. We'll share them with you in just a little bit. But let's bring Andrew DiCecco in here and get some more Eagles thoughts, some more NFL thoughts here on the Sports Bash. Football at 4. What's going on, Andrew?
Hey, Mike. How are you?
All's good, bud. I want to start with this from you. Tom Brady, 10 years, $375 million to be a Fox analyst. So do you think that Brady will be a good analyst for Fox? Do you think he'll do a good job? I mean, nobody knows whether or not he could do that job or not. I'd like to get a job sight unseen like that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we don't know if he has any proper media training or how it's going to be, but he's a smart guy. But you know what, Mike? There's a lot of smart guys that are fully capable of doing that role, and it just seems like Tom Brady is that figure, and they know that he's going to generate the views and everything like that. But there's a lot of players that may not even be household names that would be even more equipped to do so. But Tom Brady's obviously going to generate a lot of buzz, and that's what they're looking for ultimately.
That job, I mean, the number one analyst roles now. You got Romo making ridiculous money, Collinsworth making. I mean, that's a job that if I'm a player, I'm trying to get out as fast as I can to try to grab one of those jobs for God's sakes. All right, couple things on this weekend. We know that the rookie mini camps are in the books, and some interesting guys there. I know obviously you can't see all that much. There's not a whole heck of a lot going on there. But at the end of the day, we all kind of feel like those undrafted rookies, the corners, are going to be the ones. Do you think they have the best shot at sticking around? Do those guys intrigue you the most?
Well, yeah, I would say so because they have the easiest path to a roster spot because the Eagles hadn't done anything to address the position until undrafted free agency. Now, you have a guy like Josh Jobe who I think can play some safety. I think his skill set lends itself favorably to playing that position at a relatively decent level. He does have a lot of special teams experience at Alabama, so I'm interested to see what he can do there. Goodrich, to me, has the size and the length to be a long-term perimeter player. But again, these guys are all based on it's all projection. They have to go out there and perform. But I think that given the money that they allocated to Goodrich, they obviously saw a lot in him, and enough so that they wanted to bring him into camp and give him a long look at making the roster. And like I said, the Eagles don't have a whole lot of you have a lot of unknown commodities, right? You have your Tay Gowans, your Kerry Vincents, your Mac McCains, your Zach McPhersons, the Josiah Scott, who's more of an inside player. Obviously, he's a little bit shorter in stature. So there's a lot of young corners, but, the Eagles need to find quality versus, the quantity, right? So I think that they're going to have every opportunity to make this team. But looking at the class, I would say that they're probably the most intriguing signings. Yeah. Obviously, Carson Strong was probably the biggest name, and I also think that he has a decent shot at making the roster as well.
Yeah, so the corners, I think, is the one because of the lack of standout, obvious choice there. But who are some of the other guys, once they get to camp, that you're going to really zone in on that you think have a shot to make the team? So our listeners out there, Andrew, hey, look at these guys that have a shot to make the team when they get to training camp.
Yeah, I would look at Kennedy Brooks, the running back from Oklahoma. given the Eagles' running back state. They don't really have a lot of size there, and I think he provides that downhill runner. He also is these pretty decent changing gears, and I think that he doesn't have that burst or overly, he's not going to be a home run hitting running back, but I think that he does give the Eagles some size there, can be a short yardage option, and especially thrive in goal line situations. The Eagles really don't have any player like that right now, and I think he can sort of fill in a Corey Clement-esque role for the team right now. This is a guy who ran for 1,000 yards 3 times in his 3 seasons that he was available for Oklahoma. Very durable player. You wonder about his pass protection, and he hasn't had a lot of experience as a pass catcher. He dropped some passes last season that were probably catchable. So you don't know. I don't know that he can be an every down type of player, or a third down option, I should say. But I think he's someone to keep an eye on. Noah Ellis, the defensive tackle from Idaho. He's 6'4", 346 pounds. Big, powerful space eater in the middle of the defensive line. You sort of look at the pieces that the Eagles compiled throughout the draft and free agency and so on, and you can't help but wonder, how do these guys all sort of fit the mold of a 3-4? If Noah Ellis makes the team, you have now 2 mammoth defensive tackles that you've added in Jordan Davis and Noah Ellis, and you added a lot of pass rushing linebackers there. They have a large contingent of that now. So that's a player that I would watch. And Ali Fayed, the linebacker, he's 6'2", 250 from Western Kentucky. Another player that I had a 7th-round grade on, and I really do like what he can bring from a pass rush standpoint. He had 12.5 sacks last season, 17.5 tackles for loss. Got better every season. A little bit undersized. He doesn't have the length that you look for, but I do think that he has enough intriguing intangibles to get a long look this summer, and he'll be obviously vying with guys like Kyron Johnson and Patrick Johnson for one of those final linebacker roles.
I would go to Ellis because he's 6'4", 346, and when you take a look at just the size of him, not to mention they gave him $240,000 in guaranteed money, but the size and the drafting of Jordan Davis, it seems obvious that they are looking to really change the dynamics of what they look at in a defensive tackle.
I think what they really have done is they've given themselves optionality and variety at the position, rather than having a number of guys that are undersized, but they're quick and they're really fluid pass rushers. I think what they've given themselves some optionality in plugging up the hole in the middle instead of getting gouged, which was such a problem last season. Well, now you have a couple of those guys, and you have to complement what you already have in Fletcher Cox, in Milton Williams, and Javon Hargrave. And you mentioned it, Mikey. They gave Noah Ellis $240,000 guaranteed. They obviously like what they've seen. His stats in Idaho aren't going to wow you at all. I believe he only had 2 sacks. That's not his game. But what he is going to do is he's going to do a lot of what Jordan Davis can do and occupy double teams, very powerful at the point of attack, and open things up for other players to make plays. And adding some size in the middle is always a plus. And it sort of gives you an indication on what Jonathan Gannon may want to do and the kind of personnel that he needed and was lacking last season. You sort of look at some of the signings now, and I think it has Jonathan Gannon written all over it. And he's just someone that was going to push the pocket and, like I say, clog up running lanes. And he's someone that actually he's the younger brother of Eagles linebacker Christian Ellis. So you got a little bit of, we'll see which one of those guys, if either of them make the team, but it'll be interesting to kind of monitor.
Yeah, it's definitely a shift of focus for, I don't want to say focus, but so much it gives Gannon another piece that he can, utilize in the way he wants to call defenses, which really, I think that's a big thing, Andrew, is that we got on Gannon a lot last year, but he didn't have the personnel that he wanted to call the defense that he wants. Now he's starting to get that, so the criticism might be just if they don't perform.
Yeah, I think, and I think that's fair. I think some of it was on him being a first-year defensive coordinator. I'm not going to totally absolve him of any sort of blame, Mike, but I will also say that, and I think you would agree, and many would agree, that he was very limited in what he was able to do. He had to do a lot of disguising and protecting a guy like a Steven Nelson, and he had to make up for his linebacker play, which was very inept. and they were getting gouged in the running game, as I outlined earlier. So there was a lot of things. His hands were sort of tied in many regards. I think now you're starting to see a lot of players that almost feel like they're custom fit, they're custom selected to kind of fit into the scheme that he envisioned when he took the job.
Yeah, I know that we'll get into some safety stuff because you wrote about the two guys over at InsideTheBirds.com, a very long-form piece, good piece by Andrew DiCecco about the safeties. Marcus Epps, I mean, Roseman said, hey, we like our safeties more than everybody out there. I guess he's going to put his money where his mouth is at this point because it doesn't appear that they're ready to sign anybody. But Epps and Harris, is that a upgrade over what they had last year? Do we see this tandem being something that they can get by with?
Serviceable, yes. And to your point, I don't know that they're going to find anyone on the free agent market currently that is going to step right in there and be an obvious upgrade. I mean, Tyrann Mathieu obviously would have been that guy, but that just didn't come to fruition. But I think when you look at what Marcus Epps can bring and what you had last season in Rodney McLeod was a terrific locker room guy, but he was towards the, I don't want to say he's towards the end of his career, but he sort of showed some of his limitations last season. And when you have a guy in Anthony Harris, who to me looked pretty slow-footed and hesitant last season, you can't have two guys in the back end that are like that. And when I saw Marcus Epps play, remember, he started eating into some of those guys' playing time because he was diligent in carrying out his assignments. Whether it was Jim Schwartz before Jonathan Gannon or Jonathan Gannon, they obviously have a lot of trust in this guy. He goes out there and he makes plays. He's tough. He's instinctive. He's smart. He makes up for he makes up for his lack of athleticism and range with all those different, with the high football IQ and ability to adapt and things like that. So yeah, I mean, you're even seeing it right now. The Eagles are putting their money where their mouth is. I think that they value Marcus Epps a lot more than the outside perception may be. And I don't know that it was just because of simply a lack of option. I think they really do think that he can play, and they want to give him a long look. Now, we have seen late additions in the summer. Look at Steven Nelson. Yeah. Look at Ronald Darby. So, maybe there could also be, a trade. You never know what's going to happen with Jalen Reagor. Could be a player for player. We don't know. But right now, they're going into training camp with, definitively you got Anthony Harris and Marcus Epps, who's far and away the better safety over any of the other options, the Kayvon Wallace, DeAndre Sacheret, Jared Maben, all those guys. I think he's a very solid player. I'm interested to see what he does with this opportunity.
Yeah, and you mentioned Kayvon Wallace. He was a guy who was a draft pick, and I wonder, is he, in your mind, is he serviceable as the third guy?
No, I think he's more of a fourth option. He's a one-dimensional player, and I don't think that the Eagles envisioned. Obviously, they didn't envision that when they drafted him, but I don't think that they ever saw him take that next step. Now, he has been injured quite a bit and got some nicks and bruises that have really hurt his chances when there has been opportunities. But I think when you've seen him play, there's been blemishes in his game that just hasn't improved. So I don't think you can go into the season feeling comfortable with him being the third safety. So that's where it becomes interesting. And do they have somebody in that Reed Blankenship, the undrafted free agent safety? Are they going to make a trade? You can find a free agent safety out there that can step in and adequately be that third guy. But I don't know if the Eagles can feel comfortable with Kayvon Wallace being the three. I think he's more of a four and a special teams ace type of player.
Let's flip over to the offense. Andrew DiCecco, football at 4. Britton Covey, an interesting guy to me. Small guy, but I feel like the Eagles have lacked that undersized slot guy. I know he's a return guy. Is he a guy that you're going to have your eye on at training camp as a potential to surprise people and maybe make this team?
When I put that piece out yesterday, Mike, the funny thing is I got a lot of questions. What about Britton Covey?
Yeah.
Well, the thing with him is he's 25 years old. He's 5'8", 170 pounds. And the Eagles have brought in specialized guys that have specialized in the return game over the years that have been undrafted free agents. You have to do a lot more than just be able to be an adequate return specialist because you're not going to have a ton of opportunities in the preseason to showcase that anyway. He's going to have to provide value as a receiver. The Eagles aren't a team that has the luxury of stashing a return specialist only type of player. And and they also have guys that have that ability that have proven that in college, I should say. John Hightower averaged 25 yards a kick return as a senior, returned one for a touchdown, had over 600 yards as a return guy. That never transpired at the pro level. I mean, you could look at Jeremy Macklin. That he was a prolific college returner. That never materialized. Jalen Rager. So, Jeremy Bloom, for that matter. So there's a lot of different things that go into it. It's not to say that he's going to step right in and immediately provide a spark in the return game. He's going to have a long way to go. And being 25 years old already, he's just a year younger than Greg Ward.
Yeah, do you think a guy can make the team as a specialist, if he's just a return guy? Is there room for that in today's game?
If he's a field-flipping type of player that can provide a Devin Hester type of dimension to the special teams, then yes. But if it's just someone that's going to be a marginal guy that can get you, 10 yards of return, 8 to 10 yards, or burst the occasional one, I don't know that you could really rely on that. I mean, they do have guys on the roster that are capable of that. You look at the running back, Jason Huntley. Jason Huntley's capable as a kick returner. Boston Scott is capable as a kick returner. Quez Watkins is going to be a wide receiver 3 this year, so you might see him take some opportunities as a punt returner. Greg Ward is a very safe punt returner, but he's done it and has sure hands in that regard. So, they have a lot of in-house options that could do that. So, to me, I don't know how – we haven't even seen Britton Covey perform yet in training camp, and I think sometimes folks get really enamored with the college resume and don't really see why he went undrafted and the road that it would take for him to make the active roster.
Yeah, well, we all like the new toy, right? We all want to see how the new toy fits in, but that is an area, to be fair. They thought Rager was going to be that guy. He hasn't been it, and they have struggled. They have struggled with punt returns, and the kickoff return. It's hard because there's so many touchbacks anymore, but they have really struggled finding a punt returner.
Absolutely. But you have to think about how many opportunities, I should say, is Covey going to have in the preseason to showcase that.
Yeah.
I think that he's going to have to really make his mark as a receiver and show that he can be a guy that finds the soft spot in the zone, can create yards after the catch, and be that slippery, elusive type of player like a Julian Edelman type of guy in order to maybe carve out a roster spot. And then if he's able to do that, then he, it's just a bonus. He could be a shifty returner that can create yards and, help flip field position.
Football at 4. I know that we're all looking forward to the schedule release tonight. A lot of the games seemingly are out there. In fact, there is a full schedule that is out. That's 8 o'clock tonight. We'll take a look at the schedule on tomorrow's show. Andrew DiCecco from InsideTheBirds.com. And don't forget the Inside the Birds podcast. Andrew, enjoy the rest of your day, pal.
You too, Mike. Good talking to you.
As always enjoy having Andrew here on the Sports Bash. InsideTheBirds.com is where you can find his work. He has a great piece right now on the safety spot. You can check that out at InsideTheBirds.com.